You are listening to a Difference for One podcast, episode number 40.
I'm Michelle.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Cherise. And I'm Cami.
We are the English sisters.
We come together to share life-changing methods of improvement through a variety of topics.
We hope that above all, these discussions will help you feel that Jesus Christ is making a difference for you, the one. And we also hope that our podcast will inspire you to find simple ways that you can make a difference for one. Hey guys, it's Nicole, Cherise, and Michelle here today. And because it's so close to New Year's, we decided that we wanted to do a podcast about New Year's resolutions. But it's going to be a little bit different than you'd probably expect. At the beginning, we decided that we want to talk about the more traditional sense of New Year's resolutions, like goal setting and everything. And then we're going to talk about a more spiritual side of it, and you'll know what that means when we get to it. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about will be basing around a talk by Jeffrey R. Holland. He gave this talk at Brigham Young University in 2008 at the start of the new year, and the talk is called Remember Lot's Wife. At the beginning of his talk, he talked about how the new year is a good time to reflect on how the last year went or how our life is going and see where we're headed measured against where we've been. And he also said that we tend to do this during any time of transition or change in our lives. And technically that could come every day because every day is new and we have things changing all the time. So it's just something that's good to think about no matter what's going on in your life.
Yeah, so goals are always good to be constantly doing all the time. We four sisters are big goal setters, and it doesn't matter what time of year or the start of a new week or a new month. We'll start them whenever we feel like it. But we know of an acronym, and some of you have probably heard of it before, to help solidify your goals and help you to achieve them and be able to measure how you're doing with them. And so the acronym is a SMART goal. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So you want to make sure that your goals have a specific purpose and that you have laid out what kind of end result you want to get and how that will get you there. And then measurable, you want to have a certain achievement by the end of it. Like I want to, if it's an exercise goal, I want to have lost a certain amount of weight. You could also make it measurable in saying, I'm going to become more healthy by exercising 3 times a week. And then you want to make sure that your goal is attainable. You don't want to reach for the stars or make it so big and broad that it's hard to achieve it in a timely manner. And so you can even break your goals down into more simplified, smaller goals that will help you reach that end goal. And then make sure that it's relevant to what's going on in your life and that it's doable for the end result you want to get. And then time bound. So you could say for the next month, I'm going to exercise 3 times a week. Or for the next 6 months, I'm going to exercise for 3 times a week and then reassess then. And that helps you to really keep a focus on your goals and be able to check them off at a certain point and reevaluate at certain times that can help you to stay on track with them. We really like the scripture, Luke 2:52. That reads, and Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. So that scripture represents 4 kinds of goals you can have. Jesus increased in wisdom, stature, favor with God, and favor with man. So that would represent intellectual, physical, spiritual, and social. So what you could do anytime you're making a goal, or if you decide to do resolutions this year, you could write down a simple measurable goal in each of those areas to keep yourself well-rounded and focusing on physical and spiritual things, making sure that you're balanced with your social life and your intellectual life. That is something that I know Nicole does. Do you want to share with us what you do, Nicole?
Yeah, so actually where we're getting these 4 categories is from, it's called a children and youth program that is from the church that we attend. And it's something that the youth all over the world are participating in, and they are encouraged to set goals in those 4 areas. And I felt like if I'm going to teach this to my kids, then I should do it too. So I got a graphic that I found of the 4 areas and printed it out and laminated it. And I write my goals on there in dry erase marker just whenever I feel like I need to set new goals. I will sit down and pray about it and ask for direction on what I should do and what goals I should set. And then I set goals on my paper. And I also will ask my son what goals he has in any of those areas. And so then I try to help him reach his goals as well. Another thing that I do as far as resolutions go is sometimes it's a little overwhelming or daunting to me to think about setting a goal for the whole year. And a lot of us don't keep our resolutions anyway. So sometimes I'll have a goal to set new goals every month. And I'll set a reminder on my phone to make new goals at the start of each month. And then it's not so overwhelming to me to just think, what am I going to do just this month? And then another thing I like to do at the beginning of the year is with my husband, we'll write kind of like a bucket list of things that we want to do that year. And each month at the beginning of the month, we will go back and look at our bucket list and see, we'll check off the things that we've already done and see what things like, oh, this is something that we have to do this month or it won't happen. Like, if it's fall and it's about to be really cold and snowy soon and we said we wanted to teach our son to ride a bike, then that would be one of those things. So that's really fun for us throughout the year to go back over our list and look at the things we've accomplished and look at what we still want to do together. And it's just a thing that's fun for us. It's not something where we put pressure on ourselves. Cherise, did you want to share some of the things you do?
Yeah, so I love to make goals all year round. I'm not necessarily a New Year's resolution type of a person because I don't think that there's just one time in my life when I want to make improvements. So the system that makes more sense to me is in my planner that I have. At the beginning of each month, it has a reminder of how I can strengthen my relationship with each member of my family or my friends or with God. And I think of those as my goals where I write down those things each month. And then when my planner is all done, I look back and I actually don't write the same thing every single month. Like sometimes I do scriptures or prayers or quality time or whatever. But I'm really fascinated by how I come up with new ways to strengthen my relationship with those who matter to me the most. And I think that that's a really great goal or resolution. Another thing that I do is I have a section of sticky notes next to my bed on my wall. And that way, when I'm awake in the morning or when I go to bed at night, I look at them and they are my reminders of things that I need to get done that won't necessarily be done within the next day or week, but more of like a long-term type of goal. And when I feel like I've set that goal, then I just throw the sticky note away. And sometimes I have multiple ones on the wall and I mess around with the pattern and make sure the colors are all coordinating. And it's just the system that works for me because it's not something that is up on my wall the entire year, but it's constantly changing because I'm constantly changing.
I love that.
Michelle, do you want to share anything?
Yeah, so in the past, I have always had a lot of New Year's resolutions. I have been a New Year's resolution lover.
Or like New Year's resolution freak. Just kidding.
I love that start of the new year and feeling like I can have a fresh start, looking back on the last year and what I've accomplished and seeing what kinds of things I want to focus on in the coming year. And so I do take this time of year to reevaluate and start fresh. And I have big ideas, big ambitions. Last year, I wrote out 12 1-month goals, kind of like Nicole was talking about earlier, that I wanted to accomplish and assigned them a month and definitely gave room for if I wanted to change them around or felt like something needed to take precedence. And that lasted about halfway through the year. And then it seems like everything in our lives changed with COVID and everything. But I love those 1-month smaller goals of, just something as simple as I'm not very good at, I brush my teeth every morning, but I'm not good at doing it before bed. So this month, I'm just going to make that habit, because they say that it takes about 28 days to create a habit. So I thought, if I just focus on that one habit, and then once I have that in place, then I can focus on another small habit and I'll be able to see some real change. And so I have noticed that in the past, but this year, it has been on my mind to just keep things really simple. I love what this year has taught me as far as that focus on the family. We've all been forced or blessed, whatever way you want to look at it, to spend more time with our families. And it's helped me to realize how much time my family really needs me to devote to them, and how quickly the time passes where my young children will be gone and moved on to other phases of their lives. And so this is a really special time in our lives to get to spend with each other. And so my goals for this coming year are very centered on family. And like Nicole, I have thought to make a list of things that we can do together as a family. Small things like playing card games one night or doing races in the backyard, things that don't cost money and are just home activities, or going to the park. And then some bigger activities like going ice skating or roller skating, or going to the zoo, or, things like that that are out of the home, and planning those out and then putting them on the calendar. Someone gave me the idea to look at your calendar for the whole year and plan out like, okay, when are we going to go on family vacation? Do we want to do a short trip close by on Martin Luther King weekend, or, and just kind of look at the big picture of the year to make sure that the year doesn't pass you by and you don't do any of the fun things you intended. If you're a camping family and you don't plan that ahead, you may not accomplish that, or you may not go. And so that's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on implementing more family fun time and more structure into our family life. And so any goals that I have this year will probably focus on that.
Yeah, I would say that it's important when you're setting your goals to be very prayerful about it and not to compare yourself to others. You can get ideas from others, but if you do compare yourself to them, you're just going to be sad because God is going to inspire different people to do different things. And whatever my sisters might have planned for this year, I might hear it and think, oh, that's such a great idea. And that's totally fine. But if I think, man, they have such better things planned than we do, then it's not going to be productive for me. So it's best to figure out what is going to be the best things for your family and for you as an individual, and be prayerful about it. And God is going to help you know what you should focus on and what things you might need to spend less time on this year or this month or whatever time frame you're giving yourself for your goals.
I love that. And to go along with the comparisons, as you look back on what you've done in your life so far, choose now to rise above that past, those experiences you've had, and try to see, okay, now that you've done your evaluation or whatever, see who you really are, and then see for yourself what you really can become, and utilize goal setting or resolution making as a tool to help you become and do the things you want to do and the person you want to become, because you know who you are more than anybody else does, and you know what your potential is. And if you're feeling a little bit lost and not really realizing what your potential is, have a chat with somebody. Talk to those who are close to you and maybe set some goals together. Like Nicole talked about how she was setting goals with her husband, or Michelle talked about how she sets goals with her family. Draw closer to those that you trust and ask for their assistance in, okay, maybe what are some things that we can focus on together, or what are some things that I need to improve in? And that's a really good way to self-evaluate and press forward.
We'll be back after this quick break with a message from our sponsors. One thing that I had on my mind as we were planning this episode is that I was thinking about how we hear a lot from each other and in media and social media about when life will get back to normal and back to how it was before COVID and all these things. And I think that if we spend our lives wishing that we could be back to something else or forward to something else, then we're just going to wish our lives away. Someone taught me that when I was younger. If you're always wishing for something that's not where you are now, you're just going to wish your life away. So if we're always focusing on the past and the good old days, or we're focusing on some event in the future that we can't wait for, then we're going to forget to enjoy what's going on now. People say all the time that life is a marathon and it's meant to be enjoyed, not just endured.
Thank you for saying that, Nicole, because that's exactly what I needed to hear right now, that I need to focus on the present and not on future things that haven't happened yet or past things that I wish I could go back to. I needed to hear that. So thank you.
I think everybody has times like that. I know I do. I'm sure you guys do all the time. You catch yourself wishing for things that you used to have or things that you hope for in the future. And it's great to hope. It really is. But you just have to remember to also enjoy what's going on now. So this is a quote from the talk that we mentioned by Elder Holland. He said, quote, "I plead with you not to dwell on days now gone, nor to yearn vainly for yesterdays, however good those yesterdays may have been. The past is to be learned from but not lived in. We look back to claim the embers from glowing experiences but not the ashes. And when we have learned what we need to learn and have brought with us the best that we have experienced, then we look ahead. We remember that faith is always pointed toward the future. Faith always has to do with blessings and truths and events that will yet be efficacious in our lives." End quote. In his talk, Elder Holland was talking about Lot from the book of Genesis in the Bible. And he said that the Lord commanded Lot to take his family and leave Sodom and Gomorrah so that he could protect Lot's family, because the people in the city were living wickedly and God was going to destroy the city. And he told them, "Look not behind thee." But Lot's wife did look back, and she turned into a pillar of salt. And so Elder Holland said, quote, "A more theological way to talk about Lot's wife is to say that she did not have faith. She doubted the Lord's ability to give her something better than she already had. Apparently, she thought, and fatally as it turned out, that nothing that lay ahead could possibly be as good as those moments she was leaving behind." End quote. So that could apply to what's going on now with the coronavirus or anything that you've experienced in your life where you're just looking behind you or looking ahead of you and wishing you could be anywhere but where you are today.
Yeah, I'm sure all of us have experienced that thought or those feelings within the last year as we've looked at COVID and how it's changed so much in our society and our individual lives, and just wondering when it's going to get back to normal. But we're probably all going to see a shift in what the new normal is. And the more that we can focus on the good things that this has given us, whatever that means for you, the better off we're going to be, not dwelling on maybe what vacations or what family fun or, even just simply being able to go to the store and try on clothes is not something that we can do anywhere. At least where I live, most dressing rooms are closed and you can't try anything on. And so it's just an odd situation that we're all in. But there's something that God has for each of us to learn, and probably many things that we're all learning from this collectively and individually as we go through something completely different and just abnormal from what any of us have experienced before. And it reminds me of when my son, Alexander, I know I've shared before, but he has spina bifida. And we found out about his condition when I was 20 weeks pregnant at our 20-week ultrasound. And at first, it was really earth-shattering. We didn't really know what that meant to have spina bifida. We didn't know what was going to happen with him, what he would be like, any of the details. And it was really overwhelming at first. But there was so much that we learned from that experience, and I wouldn't change a minute of it. We have a wonderful little boy that lights up our lives and lights up our world and everyone that he comes in contact with. looking forward and anticipating what might be fearful about that journey is a lot harder than being able to look back and see all the good things that came out of it. And so hopefully we can all get that from our COVID experience and anything else that we have dealt with in this past year that has been trying for us, that we can look back and say, that was really hard, but I got more family time. Or I'm sure if you look back on your past year, any year really, it doesn't have to be one as significant as this one, but any year in our lives, we can look back and see how God is shaping us and changing us through the experiences that we're having. And the idea is to just keep moving forward and seeing the positive, learning from the past, and being excited about the future, looking forward to what's coming. Because if you have an eternal perspective, you can see that God has so much in store for us to come in the future.
One of my favorite quotes is, "Necessity is the mother of invention." That we don't necessarily find the desire to create until there's something missing or there's something wrong or something that we need to fix. And I put that to the test with this new job that I have as a music teacher for the elementary school, that every single day that I'm working, I'm needing to find more creative ways to engage the students or to make it more fun. And it is stretching me beyond what I ever planned. I was a music major in college, so of course I know everything, right, about music. No, but I have learned so much about little children and how willing they are to love and to be loved. And I don't think I would have understood it as much without this experience. And it gives me hope for my future that when problems arise, I will find the means to create a solution for it, because I know the best is yet to be. The future holds everything for us.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really good point as we think about our goals. All of our goals have an end purpose, or we shouldn't set them, right? And if we think about our faith enhances our purpose in setting resolutions by linking them to the higher purposes and goals that we have for life. So I'm so grateful to have my faith as a foundation for anything and everything I do in my life. I feel like my faith is what is bringing me to this point where I want to focus on my family this next year. And our faith can really strengthen and support all goals that we want to set, especially the ones that fall into one of those 4 categories we talked about earlier: the spiritual, social, intellectual, and physical. Those can all work together for a higher purpose that is bringing us closer to God.
So, the important thing to remember here is that when Lot's wife from the story in the Bible, when she was looking back on Sodom and Gomorrah, she was not letting herself move closer to God. She was wishing that she could be back where that wickedness was and back in a different circumstance. Elder Holland said, quote, "Apparently what was wrong with Lot's wife was that she wasn't just looking back. In her heart, she wanted to go back. It would appear that even before they were past the city limits, she was already missing what Sodom and Gomorrah had offered her." End quote. And later he said, quote, "It isn't just that she looked back longingly. In short, her attachment to the past outweighed her confidence in the future." End quote. There was a time in my life that I was really wishing that I could have something from the past. And I had this quote on my wall for a lot of my time in college to remind myself to look forward with faith for what God had in store for me. It's a quote by C.S. Lewis, and it's one of my all-time favorites. I quote it all the time. He said, "We are half-hearted creatures fooling about when infinite joy is offered us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased." End quote. And I related that to myself, thinking, okay, what I want from the past is my mud pie in a slum, and God is looking to give me a holiday or vacation at the sea, something so much better than what I had before and so much better than I can imagine. And actually that did happen. So we think that what we already have or what we used to have is the best thing or the best for us, but God has so much more in store for us than we can even imagine. And this just came to my mind, but that's especially true for this life. We think that some of the things that we have in this life are the best thing ever, but we can't even imagine what's in store for us for eternity. We'll just end by this last quote by Elder Holland from his talk about Lot's wife. He said, "Some of you are having thoughts such as these. Is there any future for me? What does a new year hold for me? Will I be safe? Will life be sound? Can I trust in the Lord and in the future, or would it be better to look back, to go home?" To all such of every generation I call out, remember Lot's wife. Faith is for the future. Faith builds on the past but never longs to stay there. Faith trusts that God has great things in store for each of us and that Christ truly is the high priest of good things to come. I pray you will have a wonderful new year and a wonderful life, all filled with faith and hope and charity. Keep your eyes on your dreams, however distant and far away. Live to see the miracles of repentance and forgiveness, of trust and divine love that will transform your life today, tomorrow, and forever. This is a New Year's resolution I ask you to keep, and I leave a blessing on you, every one of you, to be able to do so and to be happy." End quote. We echo that message to you, our listener. We want you to be happy, and this is just one way that we've found to be happy, is to set goals at any time that you feel like you need to, and to be prayerful about it, to not dwell on the past, and to look to the future with faith. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week. Take care.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. If it resonates with you, the greatest compliment you could give is to share it with a friend who might benefit from it as well. Check out A Difference for One on Instagram for additional content. And if you have any questions, comments, a topic you'd like to hear about, or if you'd be interested in a free mini coaching session, send an email to adifferenceforone@gmail.com.